What's up, everybody? We're back again. Say hello to all our friends. This is the CHGO Sky Show with Chris, Steven, and Steven. I love how that lines up with the initials being exactly the same. Presented by CHGO Sports, part of the ALLCITY Sports Network. And as always, we are presented by CD1 Price Cleaners. Stay fresh, stay pressed with CD1 Price Cleaners, where you can redeem the exclusive CHGO offer at https://chgo.cd1, that's cdone.com. We got the man Steven Garner in the building. Steven, how you feel?
I'm blessed, my guy. How you feeling, bro?
A lot is not quite as fresh and pressed, but this is a clean sweatshirt and got the Second City hoodie on, so I'm feeling good.
I think the team would be saying close to the same. All things considered, which we're gonna definitely end up diving into in a short time, but yeah.
Most definitely. And we have our producer extraordinaire on the wheels of steel, Steven Nicholas. How you feel, man?
I'm good, guys. We're running the gauntlet over here. We got 3 shows back to back to back, so we're going to make it happen.
That's why they got you in there, because they know you can do it. Appreciate, as always, everybody tapping in with us. Check out CHGO Sky on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. That's CHGO_SKY. And as always, follow CHGO Sports wherever sports podcasts are sold at CHGO_sports and on YouTube at youtube.com/CHGO Sports. Yeah, Stephen alluded to, it was a kind of difficult one yesterday, and the Sky are so far 0-2 on their homestand, as they lost to the Seattle Storm last night, 77-68, and dropped one Saturday night to the Connecticut Sun, who are still undefeated, 86-82. But this is our first time back since the beginning of the season. So we're not just talking about losses. We're talking about a couple wins. We're talking about Angel Reese's, maybe surprising to everyone but us and her, her production, her start to the season. We're talking about Kennedy Carter coming through in her first time back full-time on a roster. There's so much that's happened in a short amount of time.
Yeah, there's this little intermission period where we don't pod during the week is jam-packed, to say the least. The last time we podcasted was opening night, or the day before opening night, or was it opening night? It might have been opening day.
It was.
Yeah, opening day. So it's been a lot this happened since then. It's been 2 complete weeks. League-wide, there's been a ton going on. Specific to the Chicago Sky, there's been plenty going on. Still haven't seen the team quite full in terms of the deemed rotation and the roster and everybody that's meaningful within that being at Teresa Witherspoon's disposal. Nonetheless, 2 wins. One over a team that was very much a heavy hitter, literally in terms of their style of play with physicality, but also figuratively with some of the type of players they have on their roster in the Dallas Wings. The Chicago Sky losing the first game and then getting some get back in the second game, playing them that Saturday after their opening night on Wednesday. And then we also saw them do something that I'm pretty sure most people didn't have them doing, especially at this juncture of the regular season. And that's traveling to New York to face the team that represented the East in the WNBA finals, and took it to the New York Liberty, not unlike they did in the preseason game. Now, obviously, the regular season game saw a better version of the Liberty, and it wasn't copy and paste in terms of how the game went about playing out. But we still saw the Chicago Sky step their identity on the game. The game was played on their terms. The game was played at their tempo. They had their defense wreaking havoc. They got some things to happen in their favor in crunch time, which is going to be a big indication of where this team is in terms of chemistry going forward. And they were able to stamp an early season identity win in everything that they have going on. And again, this being done without the likes of Isabel Harrison, without the likes of Camila Cardoso, even more so. So just kind of seeing those things add up is important.
Diamond was out for that game too, right?
And to an even further extent, seeing Diamond Miller not playing that game. Correct. Diamond DeShields, excuse me. I mentioned Diamond Miller because of the news that we just got right before we started podcasting. That she's out. She had surgery pertaining to her injury, and she's out indefinitely. So excuse me for the Diamond DeShields mix up. I definitely meant Diamond DeShields.
That's why you're the hardest working man in the WNBA media landscape, man. The reincarnation of Tom Joyner. And shout out to Tom, he's not dead. But I'm just saying, no, I'm glad you brought that game up, because that was an indication that all those preseason rankings, I think, were off base. I don't want to say wrong, because I understand where they were coming from. When you have a team that is, said that we're rebuilding, they are trying to look to build for the future through the draft, through their remaining players under contract, through their younger players such as Dana Evans that we've talked about, and even the Marina Mabrey, who's on the second year of her 4-year deal. But that's, once we come to the end of the show, I want to get your opinion on this. You can't really grade a rebuild until maybe a year has gone by, maybe 2, if you're really conservative about it. You certainly can't say, oh, this is a success or a failure 2 weeks in. But what we've seen from the Sky team that is 2-3, but still only 0.7 per game minus, under the net rating. All of their wins and losses have been by single digits. They, I think, they're the closest team to beating Connecticut this season in terms of the points differential. And even yesterday's game, where the Sky were trailing for most of it, they still put together a run to get it back within a couple of possessions and had a chance to cut it closer than that once it came down to the end of it. It's something, the things that are in their identity are both helping and hampering them at this point.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with that. And it really feels like this team is still finding itself while also being able to stamp certain things that are going to be non-negotiables within their process on either end of the floor. And again, appreciate that. And I would also like to make sure we preface everything with, what we're going to be speaking to with the Sky for this episode, with the fact that that young lady that you see at the bottom of the screen, reminded y'all to give us a thumbs up, has not yet played in an official regular season game yet. Now, according to her return is somewhat near, potentially even this upcoming Saturday in Indiana. Haven't seen anything official from the team yet or heard anything official from the coaching staff, et cetera, et cetera. She says she should be back for the game on June 1st. This Saturday is June 1st. We'll see what happens with that. But again, this is a player that was the coveted first pick of the draft for this team in this highly pivotal, highly transitional draft that came back in a couple of months ago. Now, speaking to that and speaking to Camila, I just want to kind of quickly preface a lot of the things that we've seen in terms of how the team plays, how they go about operating in the half court, how they structure the defense. It's going to look different when she returns to the floor for this team because she is a presence. She's a presence in the paint. She's a presence on the glass. She's a presence in rim protection. On the offensive side of the floor, she's a presence in the paint as well. And she garners a different type of attention that's going to enable them to play a different style of basketball, mixed in with everything that we've been seeing them do through these 5 games already. So things are going to look a little different. It's going to look a lot more like what they're desiring to do long term. And I think that at that inflection point is where we'll be able to start to accurately gauge and assess who the Chicago Sky really are. It's not until they get Camila Cardoso back that we can accurately gauge and assess who this team is, even though we've already seen some positives and we've seen some negatives.
You can't say it better than that. And it's funny you mentioned that. There were a couple of Camila questions last night at the press conference, and I think it was implicitly said by Coach Witherspoon, as you see this quote up on the screen talking about she's ready to play and she's excited about getting ready to play, that she is going to be back within the next, I would say, 3 to 4 games. Because I think we've gotten the idea that Coach Witherspoon, while being energetic, is going to play things close to the vest. And she will answer what she can and wants to. And the other thing, she's going to give you a short answer or just say is like, I can't comment on that, or I don't want to comment on that yet. So the very fact that she said that, to that degree about Camila and what she brings to the team and that she's ready, I don't know if it'll be June 1st necessarily. We can't say that for sure. We don't have any sources on that other than Camila herself. But I wouldn't be surprised because, 1, she's been chomping at the bit to play. She has. 2, what Teaspoon said in that quote about how she diversifies their offense and defense, as you said, is very important to this team's makeup and will allow them to avoid what we saw in the Connecticut and Seattle games, which is getting out rebounded and not being able to get offensive or defensive rebounds in the clutch. And 3, who are they playing on Saturday?
It's that team in Indiana, the Fever. They got this pretty cool basketball player or 2 or 3 or 4 over there. Should be a fun matchup. But before we get to that part, though, I also want to make sure we note, and to add to what you said, a number 4 turnover issue that we've seen in multiple windows. It's gonna look different in that particular entity of everything they're doing process-wise, because when Camila has the ball in her hands, whether she's at the elbow or she's at the block, anywhere near the paint is going to slow the game down. It's going to allow for them to put control over things. It's going to allow for them to tap into more of their cutting. It's going to allow for them to obviously dictate with Camila inserting her will on the game and getting to the free throw line and scoring in the paint. It's just going to slow things down. It's going to give them a lot more organization in addition to all of the other things that they've been sussing through as a group so far this season. So it's going to be fun to see all of their pieces come together in time. And I think in addition to what you said with her being excited to come back, I think the team is going to be excited to have her back on the floor in a game scenario where the games truly matter and count as well.
Yeah, and that was why it was, I think, lucky that she didn't have a lower body injury. If I remember right, it was a shoulder injury, right? That's been what's held her out. Mm-hmm. And with a big, that's always the worry, that you have leg injuries or foot injuries, something that hampers, especially for rim runners like her, like Angel, players that have to get up and down the floor, because you know this from your playing days. Coaches always say bigs have to run 94 feet from elbow, from the backboard to the backboard. Guards have to run from the arc to the arc. and that's not a knock on guards, but bigs have to keep moving up and down the floor. And especially with those two, the way they play defense, you don't want her to have a foot injury or an ankle injury or leg injury. So the fact that it was a shoulder injury was, bad for her, but at least beneficial for the team in the long run, because then that isn't something that she has to kind of work her way back into. Now, playing the snake pit that is the paint against bigs in the WNBA, you're going to have to be careful. But still, it's just like you said. She brings a different dynamic to their offense. And I saw you say this on Twitter. We can't assess this team yet because they're not whole. They haven't been whole. They only just got Izzy Harrison back yesterday. And we were able to see in about a 10-minute window the extra dynamic that she provided for the team. So now when you have Camila on the floor as well, where you don't have bigs able to collapse on E-Will, you don't have bigs able to collapse on Angel, you won't necessarily be able to double those two. And if you decide to play giant ball and put those 3 on the floor, then you hopefully get some different looks either on the fast break or in the half court. And I'm talking about spacing, because that was an issue last night.
Yeah, this spacing thing is gonna be a work in progress all season. And I think a lot of the issues that they did see was because, particularly in that matchup with the Seattle Storm, a lot of the issues they saw was because outside of Marina Mabrey on the perimeter, there's no one else that defenders are going to respect to where they're going to neglect their help responsibilities to whatever action or wherever the ball might be. They're not going to neglect those help responsibilities to stay home because there's a shooter that's a threat that's going to garner a certain type of attention from deep outside of Marina. Now, the important part in that is they didn't have a counter to that without Camila. With Camila, now you have somebody that you can quite literally run your offense through from the blocks with her post-ups, whether she's posting up to score, whether she's posting up to garner 2 to the ball and then pass off of that attention she's garnering, or she's just catching it to get a quick touch, get the defense rotating, and then kicking it out quickly, and then they can play and read and react off of that. There's an entire different dynamic and element and context for this team that they just quite literally haven't had. Another thing that they've been having some issues with over the course of the season in a couple of different matchups and windows of those games have been teams going to switch with them. And this is something, shout out to Erica, my homie that I co-host with the PHNX Mercury with. She's in the chat tapping in with us. We appreciate you, Erica. What up? Something we've been speaking to with the Mercury as well You can say the same thing without the Sky not having Camila, that inside presence. When teams are okay with switching out on the perimeter, if you add an imposing presence like Brittany Griner or Camila Cardoso to the inside, and you're able to play inside out, now you're pulling at the strings and you're counterpunching the defense that's electing to switch. Because if I go 1-4 or 1-5 pick and roll, are you sure you're going to want to switch your point guard on Camila Cardoso? Are you sure you're going to want to switch your point guard onto Brittany Griner? I'm pretty sure that's going to be an emphatic no for any team that might be going up against them. And that's just a point. That's just an inner game dynamic, just one entity of that in which those type of players allow for you to dictate, especially against modern defenses, and just to tug at the responsibilities of the opponents within all of that. And I think that's something that we're going to see, that are going to see on more efficiency and potentially on higher volume, is that when Camila is getting that extra attention that she's bound to garner, that's going to free up Marina Mabrey, because now Marina is not going to be the only player that's consistently holding two to the ball against the defense. Now Marina can be in more catch and shoot opportunities that's not coming solely from Dana Evans paint touches or Kennedy Carter paint touches. Now you have a complete other context of offense in which you could play your offense through. And that just shape shifts your entire context, gives you a different look, and it allows for you to have more optionality within your attack, even with the waning issues with spacing, like we keep speaking to. The spacing isn't as impactful when you don't have it if you have a post and paint presence like Camila, and that just allows for you to pull the strings of the defense in a different way.
Yeah, we saw in that last graphic, the Sky are near the bottom of the rankings in terms of three-pointers taken in the league, and they've only taken 6 corner threes all season, which is dead last in the league. Now, there's not – the only team I think that has taken a lot is, I believe, Minnesota, that has 22. But still, you're talking about the short corner three, which is the shortest three-point shot on the floor. And even the 86 that they've taken is only 10th in the league. So you're trying to figure out a way to manufacture more points while keeping the identity that both you and Teaspoon talked about, which is playing inside out rather than outside in. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Sky are able to do that once Camila comes back. We got a lot more on the team coming up, but first and foremost, we want to take a quick break to talk about our sponsor, Coors Light, because the summer is here. I know it doesn't necessarily feel that way with the weather the way it is. Eric out there in Phoenix, it probably has felt like summer since April. But out here in Chicago, it's heating up, and that's the time that you want to chill out with an ice-cold Coors Light. When you choose chill, you choose fun. When you choose chill, you choose relaxation. When you choose chill, you choose the great taste that can only come from the cold filtered water of the Rocky Mountains. That's why you pick up that can with the silver bullet on it when the mountains turn blue and LL Cool J jumps out and says, "Hey, I need a girl." That's when you know it's Coors Light time. And so when you're checking the Sky this season, whether it's Saturday when they play the Fever and officially kick off summer because June is the month of Kings, whether it's when the Aces come in later this month, whether it's when they get their get back on Seattle, whether it's when the next time we see the Liberty, always, always, always reach for an ice-cold Coors Light. Choose chill whenever the option is there for you. So make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Dunk. Celebrate responsibly, always. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Did see Erica in the chat saying the Sky need Kalia Copper. Erica, come on now. Don't do that.
Way too soon.
Don't be like
too
that.
soon.
Yo, that's cold. That's ice. That's literally ice cold. That's wrong. Kai has been killing, and we're going to talk about that later in the show too.
Man.
I mean, all those years we were talking about potential MVP, it seems like it's manifested, and you wish that the circumstances were different, but it is what it is. Just back to the Sky real quick, because we were talking about their shot distribution a bit, and we haven't talked about Kennedy Carter or Angel Reese in depth yet. But, man, Kennedy Carter, I think she's finally in a situation where she can flourish, and she's getting the right guidance. That's the most important thing, because there's players throughout history who have been just talented, uber talents, but they were in a situation where they couldn't get the guidance that they needed, or just did not feel like they could be themselves. And then that changed the whole dynamic of their chemistry, the way that they fit in with the organization. And this seems like, from everything that she said, from everything that coaches said about her, a place where she can flourish. And it shows up on the stat sheet. She's averaging 10 points off the bench. She's the third or fourth leading scorer on the team. And last night she was able to come in and offer what the Sky weren't really able to get, at least not after the first quarter, which was easy lines to the lane and opportunities either for easy baskets or those offensive rebounds that they thrive off of.
Yeah. Kennedy, dog. Kennedy, she's a hired gun. You bring her in, and you know exactly what you're getting. It's gonna be 10 toes down. I'm pushing the tempo. I'm getting in whoever it is. I'm guarding. I'm getting in the grill, whether I'm on the ball or I'm off the ball, navigating screens well. You're gonna feel me. I'm gonna stay attached to you. You are not going to have fun. You might score me. It's not gonna come at the expense of either you getting uncomfortable or zapping away at some of your energy, because you're gonna have to work to score me. The first thing that comes to mind for me is might have been Alyssa Thomas, might have been Wnba. I can't remember who made the pass. Kennedy got caught over helping on the weak side right after she checked in for Diamond DeShields in the second half of that game against the Connecticut Sun. Now this is a window where she came in and got 3 steals in a matter of 90 seconds in checking in, and just completely flipped the entire script of the game. The tempo, pace of the game all shifted in favor of the Sky. She comes in, she gets beat backdoor. She's beat backdoor by like 2 steps. So this is really speaking to the level of athleticism that she has. The cut from where she is defending as the low man on the other side of the floor is coming from the opposite corner where the ball is. She's able to redirect her body, get back into position, steal the pass off the bounce, off the hardwood, steals the pass, and then beats everybody else down the court on like a beeline. Like if you ever seen somebody get a pick six in football, like let's just say Ed Reed, he gets the interception, and then he's playing at a complete different speed at which everybody else is going the opposite direction, just weeding through the weeds and ends up scoring on the other end. And she, like I said, she compiled 3 separate instances like that in the third quarter in about 90 seconds of checking in for Diamond DeShields. That's the type of impact that Kennedy has. And I say she's a hired gun. I mean it in the most endearing way. You know what you're going to get when she checks into the game, and you never have to question if she's going to bring that. That's a staple part of her foundation and everything that she's going to do as a basketball player. And I think she's in a situation, like you said, there's leadership here. There's things that embrace her here. We talked about it in our last episode, stemming from Media Day, how she mentioned that Coach Teaspoon, she said a simple sentence. She just said Teaspoon is cool, but it was the inflection of her voice where you could tell that it meant so much more than just the word cool. And she was just trying to keep it somewhat short worded, but you could definitely understand everything that she said in that short sentence. And I think a lot of that stems from just the fact that she, first of all, embraces Kennedy, the person. And secondly, desires for Kennedy to be herself every second on the court and off the court. I don't think Kennedy, well, I don't even say I don't think. Kennedy quite literally said verbatim on Media Day she's never had a coach that's embraced her in that manner. That's why she can go out and take the risks and play that risk-averse type of game that she does without having to look over her shoulder. And that's the key part of it all. A player can't fully be themselves if they can't play without looking over their shoulders, worrying about if they're getting subbed in or out, worrying about if the coach is trying to call them out for something or not. Everything is in alignment as it should be for a player like Kennedy at this point in her career. I think it's the perfect opportunity for her. I also think the opportunity is perfect for her, and she's playing very much to her role in the way that the team needs for her to. I think it was you that asked her about transition play post-game yesterday, to which you could see her, you see her face just lit up. And she was talking about just how important transition play is. She's like, yes, when I come in the game, I want to push the tempo, push the cadence of play. People underrate how important transition play is. She brings that in abundance for the Sky, and she turns the game into a track meet of sorts, and I think that's all to their favor.
Yeah, and that's something that you weren't able to get from Kennedy with the tumultuous nature of her first year in the league. She has an IQ for this thing. She has a high IQ for this game. You know, it's not just tunnel vision to the basket. She understands what's necessary. And Coach Weatherspoon talked about that too. She said that, I think, on Saturday's post game or pregame, where he's like, it's about defense for Kennedy. Like, we know she can score. I wanted to score, but I wanted to play defense. And she was part of an effort that made things very tough for Skylar Diggins-Smith. She got loose in the fourth quarter or in the third quarter and ended up with 21 points. But she was frustrated all last night. Remember that sequence that we saw that you can only see from Beard and Wintrust when there's a foul called on Skylar, and she immediately walked back towards the bench and was doing the like review it rule. And Noelle Quinn was looking the other direction, walking away, and Skylar came from the other arc all the way back to the bench. She walked about 60 feet, and Noelle was like, I'm not looking. I'm not looking. I'm not looking. I'm not going to look. I'm not turning around. Like, we know what, as I said yesterday, and I'm proud of this analogy because I think it's funny. Skylar has the energy of the woman who goes to Whole Foods and is very upset that they don't have a very specific soup out on the hot bar. And she's going to ask everybody where the hell the broccoli cheddar soup is, because that's what was supposed to be out there. That's what she came for. That's what she expected. She also can shoot threes in your face. But that's Skylar's whole attitude. Kennedy and Dana and Lindsay Allen had a lot to do with that yesterday.
Yeah, there was plenty of back and forth with that. And I think the energy that those three bring at the point of attack on defense is extremely important. But just kind of looking at Skylar in addition to Jewel, if we're looking at the game through the lens of the game from yesterday at Wintrust against the Storm, I like the positives and effort that we saw scheme wise from the Sky. They were in ice coverage. Basically, ice coverage is when a team starts an action along the outer third of the floor, or even from the middle third of the floor. You want to keep whoever it is that's the ball handler away from getting towards that middle third of the floor to get paint touches from that direction. When you shorten the route and the options that they have, it's more predictable for the offense. So if you're imagining Skylar Diggins, or let's just say Jewel Lloyd, for example, this one is clear in my memory. Imagine Jewel Lloyd is bringing the ball down the floor on the left side, and you see Diamond DeShields usually guarding her shoulder to shoulder straight up between her man and the basket. Rather than being between her man and the basket, she's shifting to where her back is towards the middle of the floor, and she's funneling Jewel, giving her options limited, funneling her towards that same sideline and also down towards that baseline. So where the person that's trying to set a screen for Jewel, let's say it's Angel Reese's person who's the screener, she's defending, Diamond is funneling that directly towards Angel, and they're able to kind of play 2-on-1 essentially and just really shrinking the floor on whoever it is that's handling the ball, who is Jewel Lloyd in this scenario. She either got to hit the short roll, skip to, I believe it was Nneka Ogwumike at that moment in time in the scenario I'm speaking to right now, or she can try to skip it over the head to the second side. That's a long pass to try to make, or she can try to drive baseline. It's only three options. Whereas when you're in the middle of the floor, especially if you get a paint touch before making a decision, you have the entire arsenal of decisions and options that you can kind of cycle through. So just shortening the game up that way, they did a really good job in that scenario yesterday, and they were active within it as well, past just playing to the scheme. I think we saw Diamond have a lot of positive play on defense stemming from that, just because she was able to really break the rhythm of Jewel Lloyd over the course of the game. And I think a hat tip has to be given to the guard group in particular for that, for steering the wheel for the coverage, and then the front court pieces being able to execute in tandem with them from that.
Most definitely. And we've talked about defense ad nauseum with this team because we knew that was going to be part of a main cog in their identity with Teresa Weatherspoon coming in. But the way that it manifests is so fun to watch. They forced some bad skip passes from Seattle in the first quarter, forced them into 5 turnovers. They were able to pick a lot of pockets early and late, especially in that run that got them back to within 5. And, these are things that don't necessarily pop out, turnovers, forced versus unforced. But the way that they played Jewel Lloyd and the way that they played that Seattle guard group made things very difficult for them. Even though Seattle was leading throughout the game, they led it by 4 after the first quarter and by 1 after the first half. But it was a weird one. I remember I turned to you and I said, it feels like the Sky are dominating this game, even though they're down by 1, because of how sloppily they had Seattle playing. And that's a testament to the defense. Something that we haven't talked about as well in terms of highlights that they've gotten so far, the Sky have, is rebounding, which we know Angel Reese and Elizabeth Williams are big parts of that, and free throw attempts, which Angel Reese is a big part of that too. She leads the team with 6.6 attempts per game. And that's near or in top 10 in the league in terms of getting to the foul line. On the opposite side, we talked about the three-point attempts that we'd like to see more of. The free throw percentage, which is getting better, but is still, I think, last in the league in terms of free throw percentage, and block shots, which is something that kind of comes with Angel's good start. I know we got that graphic in the back of what's been good for Angel and what's been bad for Angel. And we've talked about the height on her shot when she's going to the basket, when she's trying to get those layups off, how she should change the height on her arc. But you made a really good point about something else that can help her yesterday. Can we talk about that?
Yeah. So Angel has spent a lot of time. She's spent pretty much her entire collegiate career, especially at LSU, playing the center position. She was going against mostly players that were like-sized or that she could out-athleticism in terms of gaining leverage to get downhill and get to the basket. Naturally, she generated a lot of free throw attempts, but the other big thing in that is she was able to finish with consistency around the rim. I feel like we've seen through these first 5 games, we've seen her shot block a fair share of times. And I think that's a natural part of her integration and just generally evolving to the level of play in the W. Players have more length. Players are more athletic. Players have better anticipatory skills in terms of what you need to do to be an impactful shot blocker in the W. And just generally speaking, she has to just get a better feel for the types of defenses that she's going up against in terms of individual matchups. And I think the best way for her to neutralize and kind of change the outcome of a lot of the scenarios where she has the ball in the paint is by playing off of 2 feet. It's something that's going to take a little bit of film being studied of herself and how she could kind of mitigate things in specific scenarios in which she gets the ball with this team. But also she's somebody that really dives into studying other players to gain a competitive advantage. And I think she could greatly benefit from looking at somebody like obviously Asia Wilson, somebody who's also left-handed, so that it wouldn't have to look different in terms of how she's assessing it for herself. But somebody she had a front row seat to going up against yesterday was Wnba. And that's another player who has exquisite footwork, especially for a post, can catch the ball in multiple scenarios and look extremely comfortable playing off of 2 feet. And I think that's the big thing for Angel as she continues to get more comfortable by the game. You could tell the game is slowing down and she's processing it even better. When she gets to that point where when she's getting to the paint, which she has no problem with, and by the way, I checked the record for her as far as free throw attempts, and her 6.6 attempts per game is 6th in the WNBA right now. So again, something that wouldn't have been on the bingo card for her this early in the season. We knew she would get rim pressure, get free throw attempts, but 6.6 attempts and being 6th in the W is outstanding. Her getting to the line that much, I think she could convert a handful of those attempts where she does get to the line into potential and one opportunities, or when she doesn't get the whistle, which she didn't get a handful of times last night, which had us both questioning things. She can play through that contact and finish still just by playing off of 2. And there's going to be a level of patience and feel that's going to be garnered when she does get to that point. But I do think she'll start to feel that out and get to that point where she's playing off of 2 feet with more consistency, whether she's in a post or she's getting downhill out of the pick and roll. And that's going to be extremely advantageous for her. She might even get to that point where she's baking that into her process by the time we get to the All-Star break, if not the finish line of her rookie campaign.
Really good point. Just going off of 2 feet, there's always the adage, like some players jump well off 1 foot, some players jump well off 2 feet. There's players, and like the special players can do it off of both feet. But being able to settle and slow things down, and knowing that you can get that shot off if you go up high, not just go up higher on your arc, but also jump off of 2 feet so you get better elevation, that's going to help her process. And we didn't talk about Elizabeth Williams, the way that she's developed her under the basket game this season is manifesting, is another person she could look to, because then even as she goes through the season and improves, if you can make a good spin move, jab step, or just wait somebody out, then you'll be able to get the shot up without having a defender's hand over your shot. You can get them out of position. Can we go back to that graphic real quick, Steven? Because I definitely want to highlight the good and the bad that's been going here so far. As you can see, this is out of those rankings are out of all WNBA players. So the blocked attempts are 3.2, which is dead last in the league. Like, there is not a player in the league who has had more shot attempts blocked than Angel. But you also see the offensive rebounding, which is first in the league, 1.2 steals per game, tied for 36, overall rebounding, and that's ahead of some great players in the league so far. She's ahead of Brianna Jones, Alyssa Thomas. She's getting more rebounds per game than them. And even the points per game, which is 34th, there's no, other than Caitlin Clark, there's no other rookie scoring more in the league right now. So it's just a matter of being able to get her shot off. So where she got the and one last night, it's being able to get more of those opportunities, more and one opportunities, and get into the free throw line more, because now she's hitting her free throws after the first game where she was only 2 for 8. And then reducing the personal fouls that she gets, which is going to come with time. I think that's the cool thing about being able to see Angel at this stage of her career, which is, it's funny to say stage of her career when she's a pro for 2 weeks. She's already so impactful within the game. And this is 14 days as a professional.
Mm-hmm.
She's not the best player on the floor for the Sky, but defenses really do have to focus on her. The reason that the game got away from them is because without Camila Cardoso on the floor, the Storm were basically able to double Angel on the glass and make sure that there was only one shot and then gather offensive rebounds for themselves. And that's where you saw the ultimate part of the game come in, is the Sky weren't able to get those second chance points. Erica in the chat, to me, Angel is rookie of the year, but I know the general population might have to say something about that. The general population of Iowa and Indiana, maybe, but that's only a certain sect of the population.
And listen, through 2 weeks, if we're gauging it solely off of what we've seen through 2 weeks, Angel has been the most impactful rookie. I'm pretty sure you mentioned that you got something coming and diving more into that, so I won't go too far into it, but no rookie's game has translated as well, seeing the hallmarks and staples of what made them the prize draft picks that they became in this 2024 draft. Nobody's game has translated as well, nor has anyone's impact translated as well from the collegiate level to the W level. And I mean, you could also, if we could bring up John Hosey's quote, because he had like a little segue that I was about to get into next. Nobody's gone up against as much of a thorough level of competition that Angel has through her first 5 games. She's gone up against Tierra McCowan, Kalani Brown, Natasha Howard in her first game. In the second game, without Natasha Howard, but you still got Kalani Brown. You still got Tierra McCowan mixed in that group. That's a tough group of players to go up against. And then you travel to New York for your third game. You finally get a breath of fresh air, not going up against those two. And guess who you got? You got Kayla Thornton, you got Jonquel Jones, and you got Brianna Stewart. Of which she spent the most time guarding Brianna Stewart, and she made Brianna Stewart not have any fun in the first half of that game against the New York Liberty.
She was out there sweating, bro.
Brianna's usually used to players not necessarily being scared, but being somewhat intimidated to close that airspace. And a lot of the movement stuff that the Liberty like to get into it's initiated by the ball eventually getting to Brianna Stewart's hands, and she's working to either connect things off a live dribble or play it off of her triple threat, which she's one of the best of all time with. Angel had no care in the world about any of that movement stuff that the Liberty were trying to get into, nor did she care about who Brianna Stewart was. All she knew is that this was my matchup. I'm closing this airspace, and I'm taking away all of the options that you usually like to get into. How many times did we see in the first half of that game where Stewie, someone that's rather surely handed, was dribbling the ball off her foot, having to go regather her dribble because it got away from her, or getting her pocket picked by Angel as she's trying to get into that movement stuff? I don't know the last time I've seen any one of those 3 things happen on consistency. We saw that in the first half against the Sky because of Angel, and that just really speaks to her dynamic translating from the collegiate level to the W level. And then after that game, she comes home for the home opener, and guess who she's got? Alyssa Thomas, Wnba and Brianna Jones, of which she was guarding Wnba. Wnba is not a back to the basket player, nor is she a triple threat type of player. She plays off of a ton of movement and then gets to her spots from there. And Angel, of course, Wnba being a wily veteran who is somehow still underrated at this point in her career. She just took over the game in the fourth quarter. As to be expected, she used a lot of her little veteran know-how to just gain a slight bit of an edge against Angel in the fourth quarter. But not to forget about the 3 quarters that transpired prior to that. Angel did a great job guarding Wnba in that sense as well. And then comes back to the game yesterday in the 5th game of the regular season, and she's going up against Ezi Magbagor and Nneka Wnba. So all of the names we just mentioned, all of the different matchups, she cycled through matching up with each and every last one of those players multiple times over these first 5 games. Her identity is as in alignment with her team as much as any other rookie. And I think we're seeing and feeling her translatability from the collegiate level to the W level, largely because of that, but also because of the composure that she has. And Teaspoon being comfortable enough to feature her in a multitude of ways that she's doing so on offense, as a playmaker sometimes, or also on movement to score for herself, but even more so defensively, how she's being used in a numerous amount of schemes, whether it's switching, whether she's hedging, whether she's switching with guards or centers on the floor, and just wreaking havoc in every single context of those schemes that we talked about. So Angel's had the most impact. She's been the best rookie through 2 weeks, and we'll see about it going forward, but her stamp has been the most impactful so far.
Those names you mentioned, it's just a litany of MVP candidates, former MVPs. Brianna Jones was most improved player in 2021 and 6th woman of the year the next year. Wnba is having a campaign that has her in the MVP contention so far.
Another one.
It's just incredible. Yeah, every single time it's just another one. And she's had double digits in every game. So that's why that quote from Erica is on so far. She's the rookie of the year right now. And, you know, we want to talk about the wider focus on the league. So let's get into that right now, because I've been trying to write something up myself that will hopefully go up on allchgo.com as soon as I finish it. But when you talk about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese's stars being intertwined since that 2018 championship game, or possibly even before, if you dig into the history of how the lens has magnified women's basketball, it's really incredible to see how these first 2 weeks have gone down, because Caitlin's scoring at a pretty good clip, but her shooting percentage is not great so far. Her 3-point percentage is not great so far, not what was expected by some people. And she is turning the ball over at a breakneck pace, which, again, you're having somebody come in as the lead guard into a new era. But it depends on who you listen to. You know, if you listen to, I won't name names here. If you listen to a certain group of media members, then Caitlin Clark was going to come in and kill. Caitlin Clark was going to come in, and this is a verbatim quote: "Go berserk." You can search that out if you want to check and see what Airhead said that. If you listen to the player who scored 10,000 points in this league and has won championships,
the only player that scored 10,000 points,
only player that scored 9,000 points, the only player that scored 8,000 points. If you listen to that player who actually has some tenure in this league, it was going to be a different reality playing against grown women who have played professional basketball for years. And that's what we're seeing, which is also, comparisons are not always great. But to see what Angel's doing against those names we mentioned, that's crazy. Like, it's crazy to not just be able to put up points, get to the foul line, but to be able to get boards and offensive rebounds against those players. Like, even when they don't convert into points for the other team, she's making these players work. There was a sequence that looked like straight out of the Dennis Rodman highlight reel yesterday. She just kept tipping a ball, and eventually it went out of bounds. And I think it went to Seattle's way. But the second and third efforts have to be there for these teams. They have to not just box out, but also go get the damn ball, which is funny. Like, after the Connecticut game, she and Marina were both talking about they need to box out more. And I immediately thought about an old Charles Barkley quote where his college coach was telling him, is like, you're trying to box out and you're getting 5 rebounds a game. Just go after the damn ball. You have to do both, and Angel does both. She boxes out well, but she also just goes after the rock as soon as it's up in the air. And that's why it's so wild to see what she's been doing. Going out to the other rookies in the league outside of Caitlin, Cameron Brink has done well so far. You've been effusive in your praise about not just her ability to score, but her defensive prowess. I think she's either leading the league or top 5 in blocks. And then Rickea Jackson is doing well off the bench.
Yes, and I think Cameron is so good. I really do hope that our beloved listeners, which again, or viewers, if you're on YouTube, what's good, y'all? If you haven't already, please leave us a like. If you haven't watched the Sparks game, naturally the Sky have the Sparks coming up tomorrow, so that's like a perfect segue into that conversation. But also the fact that the fact that like you got to tap in with at least one of those games prior to tomorrow. Cameron is so fun. She's quite literally limitless on the defensive end of the floor. She literally does everything, can switch 1 through 5. Kurt Miller's playing her at the 5, playing her at the 4 sometimes, next to any host of the bigs that they have, because their front court group is really talented, but she spends a lot of time with Dearica Hamby if she's not at the 5 herself. Cameron is just a wrecking ball. If you can think back to 2022 and just think about the multiple instances where between Candace Parker and Emma Mieseman and then Azurá Stevens, in addition to those two, they always had a big on the floor with James Wade where somebody was putting pressure on ball handlers and pick and roll and just making operation uncomfortable. Cameron Brink has that level of scheme versatility to where she's able to impact the ball, whether it be switching, whether it be a 1 or 2 step or 3 step hedge and recover, or if she's in drop coverage potentially and just able to wall things off and just make ball handlers uncomfortable, send the offense off script. And she's able to do that ad nauseum. And she's just, like I said, she's just a wrecking ball. She's with the perfect coach to tap into that versatility as much as she possibly can have it tapped into and optimized in Kurt Miller. And we're seeing her just do great things so far. And she's also very much showing that prowess of, like we talked about on the draft night special with Mark Schindler, her ability to space the floor and knock down those 3-pointers. She's doing that at a very respectable clip right now. And she's just, her game's translating extremely well. I do think that she's struggling with the physicality in some context, but when it's not a strength-based context of any type of play, if it's finesse or skill-based, she's pretty much excelling at all of those things. And we can look at Rickea Jackson, and she's already figuring things out. We talk about the footwork dynamic of things with Angel Reese. Not that she has bad footwork in any capacity, but that ability to figure things out when playing off a 2 in particular. That's a specific skill set that Rickea Jackson refined over her last 2 seasons with Tennessee, and it's translated well to the W. She's already got a nice little compilation of plays where she's playing off of the pivot after she terminates her dribble, able to get a defender up in the air or to step through and gain leverage, and then either finish or get fouled or play make off of that. I think that's something that just translates so well. Her footwork is sticky. And I think if just naturally looking at the playoff run that Jalen Brunson just enjoyed with the New York Knicks, he's not the most athletic, nor is he the biggest player, but he's able to navigate to different crevices on the floor because of his footwork. Plays off a 2 80% of the time, close to the basket, free throw line or below. He's able to play off a 2 and get up soft touch floaters and things like that. Rickea has been excelling at that. You mentioned a lot about the one and only Caitlin Clark already. I would just also like to note that her playmaking hasn't hit the way that she's desired for it to. She led the nation in scoring and assists for Iowa this past collegiate season. And I think when we get to speaking about her career as a whole, it's not just going to be the scoring, and it's also not just going to be the 3-point shooting. It's going to be her impact and process in the game, her ability to get past initial defenders with her drives, take on that physicality, and then also be able to play make to the extent that she's not turning the ball over at high volume. Those things are all important for Caitlin. She hasn't been hitting on those notes to the extent that we saw her do her last 2 years in college specifically. Not like with Angel and the playing off a 2, not like with Cameron and transitioning into playing with more physicality, and not unlike with Rickea and spacing the floor more and knocking down more 3-point opportunities. it's all just a work in progress for these players. These players are very good at specific things. Some are better at multiple things more than others. Nonetheless, it's going to be integration to this thing. They're not going to be perfect players, especially off the rip. Give them some grace to figure out how to navigate on this W level. They're all going to be great in their own individual respects. And just appreciate the fact that we have, 4, 5, 6 different rookies that are making a substantial impact on their teams already. That's almost unprecedented, especially in recent memory with how the draft's gone and how players don't make training camp rosters or after training camp rosters and all of that. So shout out to these rookies. They're magnificent. They're doing big things. And I'm looking forward to more.
See, you're being all logical and you're being like very wholesome about the whole thing. I want rookie fights. I want the competition. I want the rivalries. I want all the narratives, bro. I want all of it. I want all that. I'm kidding. It is really cool to see it, honestly, because I have reservations. I had reservations about Cameron's game. I had some reservations about Angel's game and how it would translate. And our man Connor, our friend of the show, Connor Moore, actually put up a graphic last night for the Scott Main with the SpongeBob Angel's game doesn't translate as she got her first double-double. Caitlin actually put up 30 for the first time this season. And as Erica said in the chat earlier, Rakia had herself a game last night. And so that game tomorrow night, Thursday night, is going to be one to watch because not only are the Scots still searching for their first home W, they're the picks that could have potentially been theirs with 2 weeks before the draft. Rakia Jackson, they're coming in. Kurt Miller, who's always fun to have in Chicago for past comments and past battles.
Boy,
will be coming back in with his developing team, but also the rejuvenated De'Erica Hamby. All of those players that we've talked about are going to be another marquee matchup for Angel and E-Will and now Izzy that she's back for them to go against. And this is a Sky team that we've said that is set. They're playing inside out. And to play inside out, you have to go against a Swiss Army knife on a mission like De'Erica and Cam, who can play outside in, as well as Rakia Jackson, who you have to be ready for defensively. It's going to be very, very, very interesting watching that game. It's going to be a lot of fun watching that game.
There's a lot of youthful talent that's going to be on the court in that game. And again, I got my fingers crossed for Camila. I hope she's back sooner than soon. Honestly, I hope by the time we get done with this podcast, we get a surprise notification saying she'll be back tomorrow. That would be such a big blessing. I'm just so excited to see Camila on the floor. And again, it's these matchups like tomorrow's game in particular. Another one, she'll be going up against some fun matchups with obviously De'Erica Hamby more than anybody else as far as a direct matchup goes. But yeah, you want to make sure you appreciate. Obviously, I'm sure everybody that's watching our pod that's tapping in with us, which again we appreciate you, will be rooting for the Chicago Sky to win, but also just be able to kind of take your fan hat off for a moment and just enjoy the youthful talent that's going to be on display. These players are just so far ahead of where typical rookies are. Obviously, all at different stages in their career in terms of where their skill is, but these players are so good. Their games are translating so well, and they're already doing a good job of managing on the W level. It's not, I mean, how many star players have we seen and heard speak to the game being hard to translate to on the W level from the collegiate level? And just the fact that these players are all in some capacity ahead of the curve in respect to their skill sets, it just speaks to where the evolution of women's basketball is, where it's going to continue to go. And a lot of these players that we've spoken to in this podcast, as far as the youthful exuberance goes, are going to be ring bearers in all of that.
Standard bearers, man. That's such a great way to put it. We've seen Angel take some hard falls this year, and sometimes I'm worried. There was one she took last night that took some time to get up from, where it looked like she was hurt for a moment. She had that flagrant foul on Saturday night. But I think as all of us remember in some way, shape, or form, when you're in your early 20s, you're so much more elastic and just bouncy than you are in your early 30s.
Don't press the old button on us right now.
You're still a young man.
Don't press the old button right now, man.
See, this man talking like he isn't playing flag football every week. You know what would happen if I played flag football right now? I would catch a hamstring pull, a cramp, and I'm talking about blocking. I'm not talking about running routes. I'm not talking about any of that. So we would have the first play, and I'll be like, sub. Let me get a sub right quick. And so you have not just that, you have these players who are so just rubbery at this point in their career. And not just physically, I think mentally, we've seen them be able to bounce back from difficult performances and just look ahead to the next game so easily. Their careers are laid out in front of them. And Diana, on those comments about Caitlin Clark on April 6th, said that, the only person that they've seen, that we've really seen come into the league and just kill it was Candace Parker. And we're not seeing, we're not seeing anything like that this year, but we're seeing a class of rookies that are, if not fearless, they are not fearful. They are ready for the challenge. They are not shrinking from the limelight. We've seen that up close and personal here with Angel taking on commentary about the Met Gala, taking on commentary about her game, anything like that. Even the comments on Saturday night that I love. They don't care that they don't give a damn I'm a rookie.
At all.
Whether that flagrant foul was purposeful or not. It was purposeful because it was Alyssa Thomas, not because she's a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's another dynamic between her and Caitlin Clark, where those stars just keep orbiting each other that we're going to see all season long.
Yeah. And I think that those little storylines within everything really help to just add to everything that these players do on the court. Is the fact that they have so many different things going on off the court. I mean, Angel kind of being part of ownership of teams, all types of endorsements. Same thing with Caitlin, same thing with Camila. Like these players, and you see Rikia and Cameron just getting all around Los Angeles and just showing their faces, obviously pulling up in stunning fashion, garnering all the attention, whether they go to a baseball game, whether they go to any other event that's going on in Los Angeles, which could literally be anything at any given time. Just seeing them and how the PR teams from each respective team are pubbing these players and how they're seeing the attention garnered from the team come back tenfold. It's beautiful to see, and the league is quite literally skyrocketing at this moment in time. And it's only going to continue to go even more north and south as these players continue to evolve and get better. As the plot thickens with some of the storylines to come, like all of these things are just going to add up. It's going to make the W that much more important, like Ari Chambers always says. And we want to make sure we just continue to stress that let's keep the things. Let's just do right by these players. Just be good human beings as far as discussing these players and their names. Like these are human beings at the same time. They're not just subjects to speak on. I know you don't know them personally, but let's just make sure you keep it clean and make sure you speak about people the way you would desire to be spoken about if you were in their position, and keep the discourse clean, please.
My man is saying, don't be the anonymous keyboard warrior. He's saying don't be an asshole on the internet. I'm just keep it a buck and a half.
Absolutely.
I like the way I like that you brought that up too, because the Sparks, Cameron Brink included, were actually on Jennifer Hudson's show today, and I got to say this, Jay Hud, you from the crib, bruh. How would you not get the Sky on first? You from Chicago? You went to Kenwood.
She from out south and everything.
How could you not get them on there first? I know the show is filmed in LA. I get it. I understand, but come on now, you can't disrespect the city like that. That's cold. I saw that and I was like, man, what happened? People. What is it? I love to give celebrities, but they always leave. Jay Hud, you did us wrong. That's all I got to say about
that. And as long as she makes it right when the Sky go on their West Coast trip. And they play the Sparks. I'm cooling, but until then, she's under a spotlight. So Jay Hud, if you listening, first of all, leave us a like. We would appreciate you.
We love that.
And make sure you handle your business on that front and get them ladies out there on the show. And knowing Angel, the big thing about her, she never makes it only about her. Whether she's getting new shoes or she's got new products coming out, she's facilitating to the team, like Teresa Witherspoon has mentioned in pregame to us a couple of times now. If Jennifer Hudson does invite her and Camila onto the show, Angel's gonna have a whole team, coaching staff included, backstage, if not having 25 seats set up on stage with Jennifer Hudson, and the whole team is gonna be up there like they're in the film room.
Hey, for real. They're gonna have Ty Young up on the stage just showing out, bro.
Yep.
Hey, we got a comment in there from Marie saying that we're slacking on the content. I appreciate you looking out for us, Marie, honestly, and keep looking out for us. We're going to be picking up with the content as this season ramps up. As the sun gets hotter, that content machine is going to be churning. So you're not just going to be able to see us on allchgo.com, where Steven is going to be putting out a lot of good articles over the season, but you're going to see us more here on the YouTube channel, and you're going to always follow us, like I said, on the CHGO_Sky Twitter account, where we got a multitude of things coming out for you, whether it's fan engagement, the polls. I got to put the Wednesday pop quiz up there, but also Steven's breakdowns of film clips and our look ahead to the other opponents that the Sky are going to be facing, such as the Sparks on Thursday. One last quick thing, and we didn't leave necessarily enough time for it, but in terms of just MVPs right now in the season, we talked about Kalia Copper, who is having a wonderful season already, leading the league in points scored. Alyssa Thomas, who's always in the conversation. Arike Ogunbowale in Dallas, who is leading the league in points per game. Nafisa Collier, who's averaging 23 and 11 from Minnesota. Good to see feedback always.
She's insane, bro.
She's just so good. It's crazy how good she is. And then Asia Wilson, who is just consistently doing Asia Wilson things for a Las Vegas team that seems a little bit more mortal than they have in the past. So I will put it like this. We put those names out there. But if you had to pick an MVP today, if somebody handed you a ballot, who would it be out of those 5?
Well, if you asked me this before yesterday, in which we saw the Mercury have a historically bad three-point shooting performance against the Connecticut Sun and lose by multiple double digits. If you asked me this prior to yesterday, it would have been Kalia Copper for me. Just 3-level scoring, just the impact on both sides of the ball, doing this without Brittany Griner, and that just shapeshifts everything context-wise, like we talked about earlier with the Sky not having Camila, to the same impact that the Mercury not having Brittany Griner has that same feel. So seeing Ka just dominate the way that she has multiple times against the reigning two-time defending champions on the road, mind you, leading and scoring, all of those things, it would have been her. Now that we kind of got past that part, yesterday happened. I got to knock that back just a little bit, and I think just that little bit that's conceded is going to now go to Nafisa Collier. Nafisa Collier is, there's literally nothing she can't do on the basketball court. And the fact that the Minnesota Lynx, who I would love to talk for an entire podcast on about, they added the one and only Courtney Williams, who's just added so much to their context and shapeshifted things. By the same nature, in her own context, Alana Smith as well, just adding around to everything that they're desiring to do around everything that is Nafisa Collier. She's done everything. She's operating as a hub. She's scoring out of the post, scoring from deep. She's locking things down on defense, switching, doing all schemes galore. She's been the best player in the W so far, start to finish, in terms of from opening night to this Wednesday when we're recording. She's been the best player comprehensively. And I think she just got the slightest inch of a shoelace over Kalia Copper for me in terms of the MVP race, just based off of what I saw from last night's game.
Keep up with that, because I think this MVP race is going to go down to the wire just like it did last season with AT, Breanna Stewart, and Asia Wilson. But there's so many more faces. There's a lot of people who are back either from injury or maternity leave that are going to have an impact on not just the MVP race, but their respective teams. I like that. Erica said Fee is a dog and a mom. All good moms are dogs. Let's be honest. All good moms are dogs.
And Erica, you know better than Chris does at this point. We say dog with a capital D, especially when you're speaking to Fee. So you can't edit that. You can't edit your comment, but make sure you put that capital D in there, because she definitely earned and deserves it.
This has been the CHGO Sky Show. Again, check us online on Twitter at CHGO_SKY. We will be live and in direct for tomorrow's game against the Sparks. Follow Stephen Garner at StayTrueS.3. That's StayTrueS.3. Stephen Pridgeon Garner, always first and foremost with the film breakdowns, talking about players around the league, and as always, catch his work at PHNX Mercury on their podcast as well. And I am on Twitter at KWANDARY Kitten. That's Quandary Kitten on Twitter. Shout out Bradley University, always and forever. And I think that's it. Anything you want to add, man?
Yeah, if we shout out colleges, we want to shout out the real college down there in Illinois State too, since that's what we're doing.
Cut his mic. Can we cut his mic? Can we cut his mic? Our producer on the boards today, Stephen Nicholas, in the studio, working overtime and hopefully getting the extra bump and pay for it. Thank you to everybody who tapped in with us. Follow us, check us out, leave a comment, send us your info. Otherwise, be good, do great things, and keep your head above the clouds. We'll see you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.